Hello everyone, Kevin Skipper coming back to you again to talk a little bit about tobacco harm reduction advocacy. Today's video is titled Overregulation plus Misclassification equals Death of Innovation. And I'll break that down for you, what that means exactly, from my perspective anyway. Again, these are all my opinions and based on my perception and my involvement with tobacco harm reduction advocacy. So, overregulation happens when the government decides that there is a need based on public health or some other issue affecting the whole of society to regulate a product or an industry. However, oftentimes, especially in the last 20 to 30 years, products and industries can develop at such a pace that the federal government and legislation simply can't keep up with the innovation that is occurring. And that is exactly what happened with electronic cigarettes in the United States. So first off, I'd like to state that electronic cigarettes are not tobacco products. And now, just because the federal government decided that they should be classified as such does not make it a fact. It just makes it a governmental classification. Now, it came to this point because the federal government, through the court system, determined that these were not medical products, but in fact could be regulated by the FDA as tobacco products in the THR case. This does not mean, however, that the federal court system got it wrong. It just means that courts can only interpret law as it is written or via precedent, which is other decided case law. So when the federal court system decided this THR case, there obviously was no legislation intact that they could refer to as to what electronic cigarettes should be classified as. They did make the determination that they were not medical products, and therefore are not subject to FDA clinical trials and all the things that go along with getting through a clinical trial process. However, the only other thing left available to them was to classify electronic cigarettes as tobacco products, which is how we end up now with the FDA's deeming regulations that are still pending. So what is the solution to this? Legislation at the federal level would be the only way to make a different classification for electronic cigarettes and segregate them from medical products and or tobacco products. Only then, when new cases are tried and new laws are tested, will the court system have guidance on how they should interpret the law and apply it to electronic cigarettes. Now, if we as an industry are questioned as to the efficacy of electronic cigarettes as cessation devices, there's really only, in my opinion, one proper way to respond to that, and that is electronic cigarettes are not wholly a cessation device. Though the cessation from smoking tobacco products is a positive byproduct of e-cigarette usage, it is just that, a byproduct of a consumer product. It wasn't the industry as a whole that sued the FDA. It was a specific company, and it was when electronic cigarettes were really in their infancy. Not that we've progressed much past that now, but we're light years ahead of where we were. So the main point is that e-cigarettes are a less toxic alternative nicotine delivery system. They are consumer products, and the choice should be left to the consumer, not to the government. For hundreds of years, the only choice was smoking very toxic, unbeknownst at the time to civilization, tobacco products. However, over the last 100 years, through research, we've been able to determine that the smoking of plant matter, in this specific case, tobacco, is extremely hazardous to a human being's health and longevity. Now, however, there is a clear and distinct alternative, and that is electronic cigarettes, which are being proven more and more every day to be a less toxic means of nicotine delivery systems for adult consumers who choose to do so. So government regulations should be enforced, and they are needed, but they are only needed on a specific level for a consumer product. Not for a medical device and not as a tobacco product. What they're needed for is manufacturing processes for the hardware and the e-liquid to ensure safety for consumers, and age limitations for minors, restricting minors and those under legal age from being able to purchase and utilize these products. And that's it. Anything more than this will stifle progress and increase the cost of vaping and use of electronic cigarettes to the point where discouraging current smokers from ever trying electronic cigarettes as a viable alternative. And that's really the main point of what I wanted to talk about as far as overregulation and misclassification and how it leads to an industry that is thriving in the free and open market to potentially be killed by a government, which would thereby continue to kill hundreds of thousands of Americans and people across the world in the millions every year. And that is as simple as I can make it. Another issue I wanted to cover during this video, I just returned from Philadelphia, and in Philadelphia I attended the American Association of Cancer Research annual meeting and convention that they had at the Philadelphia Convention Center. I wanted to talk for just a few minutes about my experience there and how we are doing as a vaping community, relaying our success stories to researchers and those in the medical field who ultimately we're going to rely upon to produce the studies that are required so that we can essentially prove to the world what we already know through years of use, and that is that electronic cigarettes are the best and only realistically viable alternative to get adult smokers off of cigarettes and keep them off of cigarettes. I attended a session actually that was specifically designed to talk about electronic nicotine delivery devices, and there were 4 panelists, 3 of which were doctors and 1 was a representative from Tobacco Free Kids, I believe was the organization. And 3 of the 4 seemed fairly open-minded about electronic cigarettes as an alternative nicotine delivery system. Obviously, the gentleman from Tobacco Free Kids was concerned about marketing to minors and use by minors, which we are in the industry as well. But the main thing that I think we're failing on in this aspect is educating doctors and researchers, and essentially everybody, I guess the general public as well, as to the benefits of these products. And part of that has to do with the way some products in the electronic cigarette industry are marketed. When you have products that have questionable marketing strategies, that does definitely appear as though they are appealing to those under the age of 18, well, that's a concern for us, obviously. It's a concern because it makes it a difficult prospect for myself and other advocates to go and attend these meetings and stand there and say that they're not being marketed to minors while they're posting images of products that it's very difficult to argue, from my perspective anyway, are not intended to appeal to minors. So I would have to ask that if you're an e-liquid manufacturer or if you're any sort of a hardware manufacturer, please think about what you're putting out there into the public, because it's not the 90% or 80% of the marketplace in the vaping industry that is marketing to adults. It's the 20% or so, in my estimation, that are questionable products that are being marketed to what appears to be a wide audience, including minors, and that is extremely detrimental for our efforts for tobacco harm reduction for adult smokers. And the final thing that I noticed from the comments of the researchers that were there, they all seem to think that the vaping industry is 100% manufactured and advertised by Big Tobacco. I did my best to explain to them that Big Tobacco products, the cigalikes from the large tobacco companies, are probably less than 10% of the market at present, and that the majority of industry in the United States anyway is small business, and we're doing a great job in getting America back to work and paying taxes for sales tax and other things that go along with owning a business. However, their perception is it's Big Tobacco driven, and we have to do a better job of getting across to the public and to doctors and researchers that we are not Big Tobacco, and that our goal is the same as their goal, and that is to obsolete smoking of cigarettes and to reduce preventable deaths caused by cancer. Again, this ties back into the misclassification of products, because most of them were under the impression that these are in fact tobacco products. They are potentially as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than smoking cigarettes. So the public relations battle, we're not winning at this moment, but we have to do a better job of getting the truth out to these people so that they can research. And I think that if we get to that point, they would be more than happy to advocate for electronic cigarettes as alternative nicotine delivery systems. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up. I appreciate you watching. Please subscribe and share. If you have any questions or topics for future videos, please post them in the comments to this video. Remember, you don't have to do everything, but you do have to do something. Get involved.